is there discussions about who is the GOAT punter amongst like punters? Or is that not a big deal?
I really think, I don't know, man, because I haven't had this question before.
Okay. Shout out to Deke. Let's go.
So, I mean, I feel like as specialists in the NFL, like all of us on 32 teams right now, we definitely would say the GOAT is Ray Guy. He's the only guy that's in the Hall of Fame, and he's the most well-known punter that ever played. But I think that really also goes for eras too, or time periods as well.
Yeah, there was one list I looked at. They had Leckler.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was about to say, because I mean, Ray Guy is the only guy in the Hall of Fame, but you got guys that also played in the league for a long time. Yeah. Leckler was in the league for a long time. Thomas Morstead's still been in the league for a while.
Shout out my dog Brian Moorman as well, man. He was in the league for a long time too.
He
got some years in that
too.
Thing, man.
Yeah. Then you got Sam Cooke that just retired.
Yeah, you're right.
In Baltimore not too long ago. He was there for like 16 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, I really think it just depends on what type of GOAT you're talking about, because it's the same thing in football and basketball with the greatest player ever. You're gonna have it to where guys played for a long period of time. That doesn't make you the best because you didn't win as much championships and stuff like that. But I'm gonna have to look back at the numbers and get an answer for you who I think it is over like time periods of how long them playing too. But also you put into perspective, the same thing with like extra points when that got moved back, and how that skewed everybody's numbers and all of that. Put into effect too about kicking. I don't know how long the rules have been for NFL, but now the only two guys that can leave are the gunners. Everybody else has to stay in protection. And I know for a fact that I don't know if that was always like that. Same way the kickoff rule this year is going to be different than last year, and how it was different when you had a 10-yard head start 20 years ago.
The way they adjust these rules at times, I'm like, I get it, but man, as a guy who came in this league in 2010, it looks very, very different, man. Very, very different.
Yeah, it's different, but you're also kind of thankful for it.
Yeah, no, seriously, man.
I wish you had some of these rules in effect too, because bro, that changed lives.
No, I was about to say it's gonna prolong dudes' careers to an extent, man, and just even on the back end when you're done playing, certain things you ain't gonna have to deal with.
I mean, I'm a big old dude at punter, but I'm definitely going to know everything at 45, 50 years old, and that was one thing that I always told myself. I'm like, look, these looks might be a little deceiving, but hey, I made the smart decision. And, that was one thing I'm like, if I get touched anytime, it's going to be a flag. You get coached not to touch me. So, as long as the punt team in front of me, like everybody knows what they're doing, and we're all on one accord, we've never had that problem.
There it is.
All we're gonna do is eat. That was an interesting question though about who is the GOAT, because I don't really.
Is it even a discussion?
I don't really know. I mean, in my opinion, I feel like it's not talked about enough. But in my opinion, I think the GOAT for me is Reggie Roby, and I'll tell you why. Because look him up after this. You'll see a guy bigger than me, number one, a little bit taller than me. His name is Reggie Roby. He played back in the early 2000s in the league, and this man could literally put his foot over his head. Like his knee was literally touching his face almost. And he was black.
That's elite level flexibility, man. Jeez.
Elite level flexibility.
Yeah.
And I mean, he has one of the most notorious fake punts I've ever seen. Like, so if you look his name up on YouTube, you'll see him fake a punt with his leg up in the air and just put the ball behind his back, take off running to the left.
That's crazy.
The craziest thing I've ever seen. But like, he's a very, very big dude.
Okay, so one list got him at 7. I'm looking at right now.
Yeah. He was
I'm looking
at
this picture. His knee is literally like staring right at his eyeballs. Like that's nuts.
Yes, he can see the ash on his kneecap. He looked hard enough.
That's how close crazy, man.
Yeah, bro. Like he was a freak of a punter, and like I looked at him like that because when I was growing up, when I was in high school, my high school coach actually gave me the nickname Lil Roby. So he was saying like I was a smaller, like younger version of Reggie Roby, and that always stuck with me because that was the first black punter that I actually was, introduced to.
That's dope, man.
That's my goal. because I look like a modern day him, if you're being honest. And that's
you're right.
that's hard to do. I mean, the looks are one thing, but to be here and also be an African American punter just like he was 20 years ago, he paved the way for me. No, if it wasn't for him to go through what he went through, I wouldn't be where I am today. So, I feel like him, I can call Marquette my GOAT.
I was about to say, literally, Marquette. Man, when you started talking, I'm like, bro, Marquette King, he was the one. He was swaggy as heck. I remember he dancing out there before he had punted, man. And then he started celebrating after the punts, man. I was like, yo, he on one. I like his guy. I like his game, though, man.
Yeah, man, that's my dog, man. Like, that's my brother. And, he was there for me because, a lot of people also don't know it, but, I almost lost my mom when I was in high school.
Oh, wow.
She wound up having a weird bleeding on her brain at work one day. And, she was in ICU for, I don't even know how long, man. It's like, it took her, she couldn't walk, talk. She was saying full sentences in her head, 2 or 3 words was coming out. And she really had to relearn all of life over again. And at the same time, I'm 16 years old and my dad's on dialysis, still sick. And it's just me, my dad, and my little brother in the house and my grandma. And, I'd had to grow up at a young age. So, Marquette was there for me throughout that whole time because I was, going through high school, going through these evaluation camps and stuff like that. I was ranked number 1 in the nation at one point in my class. And, he was at the next camp that I was supposed to go to. But we were going to go as a family, but my mom got sick. So, I had to go to Wisconsin to this camp by myself with just me and my coach. So, my childhood, man, like I've been through a whole bunch, and at that moment, he was really the guy I looked up to because that was the only other black punter I had ever really known him out up to that point too. Yeah. And, he had this one video he did when he was punting, and he was, he shouted me out and my mom told her to keep fighting and stuff. It was just small stuff like that, he went out of his way because I haven't even met the guy at that point yet. And, he went out of his way and did that. And, it really helped my mom push through. He still calls my mom every blue moon, honestly. And I told myself, man, I'm like, look, outside of how long I want to play in this career, outside of, the game of football, man, you find real good people around you in sports. And I got a good support system that's real close to me, but I also got, a lot of people that I don't talk to every day, but I can pick up just like where I left off at. And, 2 years ago, I haven't talked to you in 2 years since COVID, but here we are, picked up right where we left off. And, you really get that from the game of football.
No, that's
from
facts.
Players you play with, from former players like Art Moat right now.
Hey now. I'm just glad,
and the guys that ain't even in the league yet. It was a reason why, Marquette did that. And it wasn't because he was doing it for himself. He was trying to uplift somebody else.
It's a brotherhood.
And it's a brotherhood, man. In the specialist world, it's definitely a brotherhood because there ain't many of us. We got this camp coming up next month in Tennessee, in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, on the 18th and 19th. And, just about every team at least have one specialist on the roster there. Yeah. And, it's the time we compete always. But at the same time, we break bread. We got a big old cabin we stay together with. And, we all, really get to understand and get to be there for each other because, sometimes in a game of football, you think they're the enemy. And, it's always been like that for, as long as I can remember, especially for me. I'm like, man, I got to be better than the other punter. But I had to flip that when I got here. I ain't going against him because we ain't on the same field at the same time. It's that returner. So, just small stuff like that I've been learning over the times. But at the same time, just being able to, have guys that's still around me that, I can text Marquette right now. He'll hit me right back and, pick up right where we left off. Yeah. And, there's plenty more people like that out there. But, I'm appreciative of it. And, I'm thankful for where I am, because of guys like Marquette, because of guys like Rick, and, plenty of other guys, and I got one I've been training with, his name's Cedric Oglesby, another African-American kicker in the NFL.
Wow, okay.
He was honestly the reason why I got at Georgia Tech. And, I didn't really get an opportunity to say this earlier. I kind of forgot about it. But now that I think about it, he is the reason why I went there. So, I was at a camp in Alabama, for their like specialist camp. Wanted as a sophomore. Went in there to Saban's office. He told me, hey, we got J.K. Scott here. He's the best in the nation right now. We don't know how long he's going to be there because he could come out earlier. He could stay another year. I ain't never heard nothing back from him. But on that way back from that drive from Bama to South Carolina, we stopped in Atlanta. So Georgia Tech had their camp the second day right after Alabama's. I wound up winning that camp. And it was because Coach Oglesby was the coach that was, put through out of a third-party thing because he owns his own kicking organization to help out with that camp. And since that point in time, he's helped me out tremendously while I wasn't being able to be with my other coach back home. And he was a guy that also did exactly what I'm doing. So I'm like, who else to, be able to get some help from, not even just with kicking, but also just life, being able to, say he was an NFL athlete, especially as a black punter or a black kicker, it's tough. So there ain't many people you can talk to. Being able to have him there was a big help. And he got me to Tech. If he didn't hit my mom and dad after that camp in Alabama, he'd have come through and stopped, I probably wouldn't have been there.
That's crazy. So,
life would have been different already all over again, man. So, that's why I say I'm just appreciative of every little thing, even when I didn't feel like do it. My mom and my dad made me still go and do it sometimes because I definitely didn't want to do that camp. I was tired. And it was like a 6-hour drive back from Tuscaloosa to Atlanta. And then a 4.5-hour ride back from there. I'm like, man, come on, I'm ready to go home. But my future was right there. And, in that moment when I didn't really feel like doing something, but that discipline took over and I was like, all right, I got to go do it. That's the same thing I got to tell myself these days. Every day in the off season ain't going to be the best day. You're not going to have the most to do. Like I really haven't done much all day today, but, had a little accident with the kitchen sink. We gotta clean that out and get that fixed. So that took my day today. But you still gotta get that workout. You got a Peloton downstairs. I'm like, hey, I might be at the house because the plumber was here, but hey, I gotta get a workout in. So just being able to use that discipline that I had at a younger age and just see where it took me today. I'm appreciative of it. But just gotta keep going because the road ain't narrow yet.
No, ain't that the truth, man?